Hi, Carrie.
Hi, Josh.
It's good seeing you today.
I know. It's the first time.
I know. It's not like we hadn't even been, it's like the first thing we've said to each other all
I
day.
know. I know.
Right?
Kind of all week, even.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have a doozy to talk about. Some difficult or uncomfortable, might be the better word,
Heavy.
heavy
Yeah.
topic. We are going to talk about the dreaded milestones of betrayal trauma recovery. So don't go anywhere. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Therapist Take, and I'm here with my co-host Carrie Kiger, and we're going to talk about this idea of what we're calling the dreaded milestones of betrayal trauma recovery. And this was kind of born out of the last podcast we did, where if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, it's probably one or two behind, but it's when we were talking about the lasting pain of infidelity.
Yeah.
And and I was like, we should do a milestones topic. And so that's what this is. And we are calling it the dreaded milestones of betrayal trauma recovery because they're difficult. And so we'll go ahead and put those on screen for you. And so the first one we're going to talk about is the acceptance of uncertainty, which we tend to talk about a lot.
Yep.
The reality of anger without shame, the importance of forgiveness, and the empowerment of resolve.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do.
They're nice. Yeah. But I think even the title of it is, I really like the way you titled it because dreaded, I think, captures the emotional experience, right? The pain, the discomfort. Dreaded meaning no one's sitting around waiting for it, but it is a milestone. It does reflect progress through the pain, right? And so even though you may hear these and think, oh, those sound awful, and agreed,
Right.
and it's also giving you information about how to move through, right? The path through.
So, one thing that I like to say a lot is that mental health and relational health are found in paradoxes.
Yep.
So I've probably said that on the podcast already one or two times, I'm sure. But it's kind of a paradoxical concept in a way because what milestones are dreaded? I mean, we usually, like if I'm running and I'm setting mile markers, for example, we usually set those milestones to make larger, more difficult goals and aspirations more achievable.
Right.
It gives us hope. Helps us believe in ourselves more when we set the milestones or we have those milestones.
Sure.
So a dreaded milestone, I know, like as a parent, my kid just turned 16 and is driving. I know that's a dreaded milestone for me. For
a new level of
him,
worry.
I'm dreading it.
Yeah.
But for him, it's not.
Right.
It's one he's looking forward to.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's always that way, but in betrayal trauma recovery, there are probably some milestones that aren't dreaded, but there definitely are some. Or in another word we might use is uncomfortable. Or fearful. It's just it's hard, and so we're going to talk about why that is. In this, and so let's get started. Let's just go ahead and dive right into the acceptance of uncertainty. And the reason why I put that one first is because I think that it's hard for me to even call it a milestone. I think that's why I put acceptance in front of it.
Acceptance, yeah.
Because by the time people get to us to work, after they've discovered, some form of infidelity in their relationship.
Secrets, betrayal,
uncertainty is very present.
Yeah.
Right?
They're already walking that.
Right. So we're talking about the acceptance of it, right? And so for you, like, what do you see happening with couples when it's this, we know that's a milestone they have to get to, but there's often resistance there.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about that resistance.
Well, I think the resistance is, from a mental health perspective. The resistance is the trauma and the grief that comes with that, right? Because a lot of people will say that discovery of a betrayal is earth shattering in every way.
Right.
And I used to know who I was or what my relationship was like or what my future was going to look like. And now I don't know any of it. Right. And so when people are resistant to accepting that there's no certainty, there's no guarantee, there's no guarantee that you're going to be together. There's no guarantee that you're going to want to split. There's no guarantee that you're going to come out of this a, more hopeful or positive person. There just are no complete guarantees. And so when people resist or fight that, the acceptance of that, I think of it from a clinical perspective of, well, that's the trauma and that's the grief, right?
Right. Exactly. I mean, if I'm in their shoes, so the first thing I would say is that if there wasn't resistance, I'd be a little bit alarmed by that.
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
So if this is not resisting it or going into it begrudgingly,
Sure.
is not even close to a character flaw. I mean,
No.
that's just part of the normal process.
Human brain.
Right. And so what I think of though is like putting myself in the partner's shoes is, when I say the partner, the one who has been betrayed, is, you're telling me that this is how it's going to be, like that I just have to accept this, that this, what we call uncertainty, which they might have various other synonyms for.
Sure.
And it's just crappy, I mean, they've already been dealt a handful of crap, and it feels even crappier now,
Yeah, sure.
And did it have to be that way?
Right.
You
Right.
know?
Sure. We hear that a lot.
Sure. Yeah. And my thought is that it's, it's always been that way. It's just we don't have the luxury of the what I call the illusion of certainty, and I sometimes for myself I miss that. Like, I mean, it really puts in perspective the ignorance is bliss adage,
It
right?
really
Or
does.
expression.
Yeah, sure. Starts to mean something different.
Yeah.
You really know what the bliss felt like,
Right.
compared to this agony. Yeah.
So now the thing is, I think it's important to mention is that, it makes sense on why someone would want the illusion of certainty, like if their world was just great and wonderful and perfect, and sometimes that is how partners who have been betrayed, experience life. Is, and one thing that we say, one of the myths of infidelity, right, is that infidelity can happen in good marriages.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And so, but the other thing is that, well, some people, their lives aren't so great when the infidelity happened, or their marriages weren't so great, or couple relationship wasn't so great. So does this still fit? And I think the answer is yes, because at least that chaos is a chaos they understand.
Yeah.
Whatever the chaos was before the discovery, or whatever, whatever unhealthy patterns or they were in, it was a world they understood, and which is often preferred over one that I don't.
That's right. Yeah. People, as they say, right, will choose the familiar even if it's not good for them or uncomfortable for them, right? And now they've been thrown into a world.
Is it the devil I know, or what? How's that one?
The devil I know. Yeah.
Is that it? Yeah. So, so what does it mean to you when you hear like this, the milestone of acceptance? What does that look like? The acceptance of
that's it's specific, of course, and unique for everybody. But I think it sounds things like, "Well, I don't know what's going to happen, but I know that I'm going to," or statements like, "Well, I didn't choose this, but I'm going to have to recover from this," right? Or I'm going to try to see, I don't want to make my life, have no meaning. I'm going to continue to try and find meaning through all of this. It's those statements of resilience, right? It's the idea of also, in a way, staying, focused, but being very open, right? Not already picking a destination ahead of them, but saying, I know I'm going to start moving and I don't exactly know where exactly I'm going to go,
Right.
That's
Yeah.
really the definition to me of courage.
Yeah. No. Yeah. 100%. I agree completely. I also think it looks a little. We're kind of talking in a way. I think both of us are kind of also reflecting on the partner who's been betrayed.
Sure.
I think that there's still this milestone with the partner that did the betraying. So, because I think a lot of times they're caught up in the fantasies of their mind, and or whatever, we can call it la la land if you want.
Sure.
They're not operating in reality. They have made it to where they've convinced themselves at least at one point in time that this double life can exist. They can coexist, and that whatever lies they're telling themselves to make that work, like that I'm not hurting anybody, but maybe not even hurting myself. But if I am hurting someone, I'm only hurting
Just
myself,
me,
or
right.
What my partner doesn't know won't hurt them.
Sure.
Things like that. And I think their sense of certainty comes in like this kind of godlike, fashion of that. I've convinced myself that I can control this. I can manage this.
That's what I was saying. Maybe.
And then crap hits the fan, for lack of a better term, and they're hit with that reality of that this world of uncertainty is not as manageable as I
Right.
was hoping it could be.
Right. Yeah. So kind of acknowledging that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And these are general.
Right. We're generalizing.
Right. We're
sure.
generalizing things. So it's not there are varying experiences here with everybody. So that's the acceptance of uncertainty.
Yep.
Okay. So let's talk about the reality of anger without shame.
This is some of my favorite stuff.
I know. I figured you'd like this one.
Yeah.
What do you like about this one?
It's so raw. It's
Yeah.
so uninhibited. It's so basically human,
Yeah.
right, at the core. And when I get to sit with people that, as you were saying, experience this milestone, I'm always very proud. Proud of them.
I am too.
Right? Proud to be with them in that, because I do think it's courageous. And I know that sometimes it comes out in silly ways, right? Sometimes these sessions look like us giggling a lot at the absurdity,
Yeah.
right, of embracing anger, but without shame, right? Without shame.
Right.
I don't know. That's some of my favorite stuff.
Right. Well, let's address why people listening to this might be, why is this a milestone?
Absolutely.
Why
sure.
did we consider this a milestone? And I think it's because a lot of the times anger and it's not this way for everybody, but
Sure.
anger is closely correlated with shame.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have a hard time being angry without feeling shameful about it,
Sure.
Which is
Right.
like a meta emotion, an emotion about an emotion. I feel shameful about my anger. And that can be for a plethora
Right.
of reasons.
Oh,
and
sure.
that's part of our job, to help kind of get to the bottom of that.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of like this very normal human experience. And a lot of people coming in to see us have a lot of really good reasons to be angry about things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they have to let themselves do it. And when they accept that, it's kind of a beautiful thing. Sometimes they're angry at me.
Yeah. Oh, Josh.
Why
yeah.
are you doing this to me?
Right.
Type thing, and I just, when you kind of pan out, I'm like, it's tracking, and so.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think like you're talking about, I like the way you said it's a meta emotion. And I think that even from early on, most of us spend a lot of time trying to manage anger, shoving it underground, using it as power, whatever, right? And to come to the spot where you can accept that anger has a function and you can put your arm around it and let it help you and serve you. And you don't need, the shame doesn't need to exist, because anger is something that is normal, healthy, and appropriate.
Yeah.
And when you have experienced a betrayal, even if you're the one who did the betraying, you're going to be having some anger, maybe mostly self-loathing,
Yeah.
right? And we have to work through that too in a way where you can be angry, but not, beating yourself up and using shame as the secondary punisher, right?
Right. I actually think, like in most of my experience in the team approach that we do, I primarily work with the person who has betrayed, the unfaithful partner, as we say. And but I have worked with many partners that have been injured by betrayal.
Right.
And the anger resistance is different, but I think it is there. I think partners, they feel it so strongly at times that it just, whether they want to express it or not, it's just coming out.
Oh yeah.
And it bothers them, I
Yeah.
think. And then there are some that harbor it pretty tightly,
Right.
But the unfaithful partner, I think for sure, is going to have an anger journey, and most of the time it's not anger with
Right.
the partner.
Right.
A lot it's anger with a lot of other things, and that's one of many
Right.
difficult feelings that they're using their sexually compulsive behavior to manage.
Or their secret keeping. All that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll never forget a client that I had that, basically that's what he said to me was, "What are you doing to me?" He's like, "I am angry like all the time." And it's like, when is it going to stop? Like, and of course he hasn't, he's facing the reality of it, hadn't quite accepted it, but I often say, like, it's not going to be like that forever, but you got to let yourself go through this, and maybe something that some courtesy that you could give your wife and your kids is to say, I'm going to be unpleasant for a while. It doesn't give me the right to mistreat you or to mistreat you in my anger. But I need to let myself go through this, and I think when they allow that to happen, when they stop resisting it, it actually, it's not as strong or unmanageable feeling anymore.
Right.
So,
Right. Sure.
yeah. Yeah. So anger without shame, that's a important one. Okay, so let's talk about the third one, the importance of forgiveness, which sounds boring. Nothing clever there. Like anger without shame, that's clever.
Yeah, but forgiveness.
Forgiveness is boring, but
right. And if you think about that too early in treatment, I always joke that forgiveness is the F word, right? It's like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
So you can see why this is not the first one we talked about, but later.
Right. Yeah. And the interesting thing is, okay, I'm having a little bit of my brain's going 1,000 directions, so let me back up just a second.
Okay.
I think forgiveness is one of the most complicated human phenomenons that exists.
Yeah.
Like, for example, how do you forgive someone a little? That happens. I mean, people say that all the time. Like, have you forgiven so-and-so? I've forgiven them some.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Like,
Yeah.
what is happening there, But I think it's possible. And what does it mean to fully forgive? And how do you know you did it versus how do you know you just didn't, sweep it under the rug?
Right. Move on. Yeah.
Right. And so for me, and I'm going to hear from you too on how you would define it, but for me, forgiveness just simply means that, the meaning behind what happened has changed for me.
Yeah.
So in other words, this thing that happened, it doesn't mean to me now what it meant to me then, which I think when people say I've forgiven you some is kind of a reflection of that process of the meaning starting to change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just hasn't changed all the way yet.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it is. I think that's how I would describe it too, is that process of changing the meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's again, back to phase one though, the ambiguity, right?
Yeah.
And the uncertainty
Right.
of, but it must mean this thing, right?
Right.
If my partner lied to me, that must mean they don't care about me. They don't trust me.
Right.
Right. And then we shift to,
Yeah.
what else could it be? What if that's not what's behind this?
Yeah, the implications are strong there, like especially for the person who's been betrayed. So, I mean, if I'm, in trying to put myself in their shoes and in hearing me talk about this, might be thinking, so hold on a second. This person cheated on me, and and right now that feels like a very bad thing. Are you suggesting that to forgive this person, that infidelity is no longer a bad thing?
Right, right.
How would you answer that?
No, of course not. That would be my flat out answer, right?
Of course.
Of course not. No, but what this tends to look like, and I'll do partners first. What this tends to look like from the partner's perspective is I'll hear statements that help me know they're moving through this when they say things like, I guess that he or she just didn't care about me, but maybe not. Maybe there was something else. Or maybe that's just my perspective. Or I haven't asked it in that way, right? These statements, which to me, I hear gaps. I hear space in the old story because they're starting to write a new one. And that's where I think you start to hear forgiveness, right? Like, oh, I thought that must mean you didn't trust me. And that's why that happened. But maybe that's not what it is.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, maybe right. And my thought is that infidelity will forever and always be a bad thing. It will probably forever and always land people in our office
Hurt.
or in other therapists like us, right? And it likely will forever and always challenge the togetherness of that couple. So, infidelity could cost someone their relationship with somebody.
Yes.
And rightfully so if someone decided they needed to leave. But does it mean that person did that person cheat because they just didn't love me enough to not cheat? Or did that person cheat because I didn't love them enough?
Yeah.
Or is infidelity the worst thing that someone could ever do to me? Or people who cheat or who have cheated, does that make them a horrible, terrible, bad person that can never be trusted?
Right.
That's what we're talking about.
That's right.
Right. And so whether if you're somebody that has been cheated on, whether you stay with that person or not, for your benefit, my guess is you're going to have to forgive.
Yeah.
But you still may not be able to be with them.
That's right. Right. Sure.
You know.
Because forgiveness is, of course, for the person doing the forgiving. It's not for the person who committed the crime, right? But what does this look like for the person who did the betraying?
So glad you asked, Carrie. Thank you.
We're on the same page.
No, I think this is important because it is not just a little different. I think it's a lot different.
I think so too.
Now, for both partners, they're, as they get further into treatment and they start diving into their traumas, they might find there's some forgiveness to be had with other people, other things that have happened in their life, they have to do. But just kind of sticking with the couple right now. A lot of it is for them is self-forgiveness. And there's a lot of resistance to this.
Yeah, there is.
They feel so bad. Most of them do, I will say. Most of them that come here.
Right.
Feel terrible about what they've done. They feel terrible about the pain that they've caused. And then they start treating this like a life sentence. And that's something I talk to them about a lot, is that this is not meant to be a life sentence. But also, too, if you're really trying to convince your partner that you're worth staying, I mean, they're not going to want to be with somebody that's just that's in prison.
Yeah.
That's in their own mind.
Sure.
And so you got to start operating like you're worth the trouble, which is usually part of the problem that got them in this mess.
Right.
And that's a whole other topic. Again, we go back to the implications of what happens to us if I forgive me.
Mm-hmm.
And what I often say, and I really believe this, the, the person who's been unfaithful, their partner has already forgiven them a little, or they wouldn't even be in the session with them.
Mm-hmm.
But they can't forgive them all the way and feel safe in that relationship if they're the person who committed the crime, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
hasn't forgiven themselves
Right.
all the way.
Right.
Because if you haven't forgiven yourself all the way, that means that you're still beating yourself up to some degree, and you're also doing it in secret,
Mm-hmm.
which means you're going to want to manage it in secret, which is how we got in this mess
Mm-hmm.
to begin with.
Right. Well, and it even breaks I think, a pretty good standard in good couples relationships, which is don't ask people to do things you're not willing to do yourself, right? And so
Right.
you're asking your partner to forgive you, but you won't forgive yourself. Just
Mm-hmm.
that imbalance isn't going to last.
Right. Yeah, it's also like I think the unfaithful partner, I'm sorry, the injured partner, the one who has been betrayed, I think they also intuitively know that if they need me to forgive them first, then that's a way you're asking me to take care of you.
Yeah, right.
And that's just not going to fly anymore.
Right.
Like you need to take care of you,
Right.
and let me do my process.
Sure.
And so but it's when they do it, when they forgive themselves, it's disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
It does not feel good to the partner who's been betrayed,
Mm-hmm.
because they haven't forgiven them fully
Yeah.
yet, right? So it
Yeah.
feels like insult to injury.
It can feel like that. I think sometimes
Yeah.
sometimes it just feels different or new or takes them aback or they're surprised. And sometimes it's also uncomfortable, right?
Well, sometimes it is insult
And
to
sometimes it
injury.
is.
Like if
Sure, if
like we
it's-
get a false positive, like, and that happens a lot.
Right.
Where they're jumping the gun on
Mm-hmm.
like there's just something to be said for is like if a month after the discovery, and then you're parading yourself around like
Right.
everything's just fine, like
Right.
you've forgiven yourself, and I'm not in prison anymore.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right.
that's not that.
We're talking about genuine work
Right.
here, right?
So that definitely would be insult to injury.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think at minimum it's alarming to some degree. Like what am I seeing here? What is this? But if there's still quite a bit of work to be done with the injured
Yeah.
partner, whether it's the betrayal injury or past traumas or
Sure.
whatever, it kind of we have that concept we call reflection aggression, which I'll try to make sure to put in the show notes or to put in the description, so people understand what we're talking about here. But that's a term that we coined to actually, give a name to the partners who are going through this. That when this forgiveness process happens, it sometimes is like a how dare you moment, like how
Yeah.
dare you get better while I'm still hurting so badly.
Yeah.
you
Sure.
know?
Mm-hmm.
And I think the partners who have the unfaithful partners, I think that they intuitively, at least intuitively, know that it just doesn't feel right to
Right.
do that.
Right.
I was like, I've already hurt them enough.
Yes.
Like, this is going to hurt. I'm like, yeah, it is going to
Mm-hmm.
hurt. But they often don't understand the difference in good pain and
Good pain.
bad
Yeah.
pain. And,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But and so, and for people hearing this too, like, we don't rush people to this. Like,
No.
I mean,
no. None of this
like,
is
how long
rushing.
might it take? Like, would it surprise you if it's 2 years
Nope.
in and
Nope.
we still haven't hit this milestone?
Nope. It would not.
Right.
Mm-mm. No,
Yeah.
it takes a while. And I think anybody who's, tried to engage in a forgiveness process knows, it takes a while. It's not it's not one apology. Pardon me for stepping on your foot, right? This is a deep wound. It takes a while.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, the forgiveness one, like I said, it sounds boring, but actually, I think I could do
Oh, sure.
12 talks on that. I mean,
Sure.
there's
It's
so much
so
to
much.
unpack with that.
Mm-hmm.
But we need to move on. So let's talk about the final one. this probably is one of my favorites, the
Okay.
empowerment of resolve. So let's just talk about,
Yeah. What makes it your favorite?
yeah. So I think to answer that, I probably need to define what I mean by resolve.
Okay.
And then people might be able to get why that's empowering, but I might have to go there too. So we'll see. So to me, resolve is a emotion or a feeling or a state of existence that happens just on the other side of defeat.
Mm.
And one thing I talk to my clients about, especially the ones who have been unfaithful, is that you've got to accept defeat, and then after that, it's kind of like it's a defeated peace, is what I call it. It's like this happened, I lost, and it doesn't feel good. But I get that it's happened, and I'm just ready for what comes next now. That's resolve. And you don't want to live there because there's a sadness to it. You want to move on from that into whatever peace means to you. But this is like the beginning stage. It's like it's a defeated peace.
But I guess I also hear the word resolve, and I hear the defeat, the acceptance of defeat, but I also hear determination when I use the word resolve, right? Like I missed that fly ball. I'm laying in the dirt, right, in the grass, and I missed it, right? They scored, we lose, whatever, right?
Yeah.
But I'm going to practice a billion pop-ups,
Yeah.
and not in some kind of desperate, but like, yep, this is truly what happened.
Yeah.
But, I've got to accept that, and then what do I have to do next?
Yeah. Yeah. And, that, whatever comes next, like that game's over. Will you get to be on that team? Will you get to play outfield again?
Right.
I just got to accept that this thing happened, and it didn't work out so well for me in the end. Most people's stories aren't.
Right.
Relational stories aren't horrible the whole way through. Some people's are more so than not.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's that's where the empowerment piece comes
That's
in.
right. I think so.
I'm ready for what comes next now. Like it's liberating. Like I'm. It's not that I'm not afraid, but I'm not as afraid anymore.
Right.
Of that part.
Well, that's what all the resiliency literature shows, right? That if you can find the strength in that what you survived, right, you can find what's next. And I think it is very empowering to feel like you've turned that corner, right?
Right.
That did happen, that defeat happened, or that's not for me, or that's not my strength, or whatever, right? That's but what's next?
Right.
And that does feel empowering.
Yeah, I would say like all these milestones, and these are just a few of them. All of them are rubber meeting the road moments. I feel like, but I think that one is like major. Like, it's one thing. Like if I'm running, and I'm trying to, run a marathon, and I have the mile markers up, and I'm just hitting those mile markers.
Yeah.
But when I hit the 13.1, that's something else. That's different. That's a big moment, to hit that marker. And I think the resolve one is one of those in this process. So.
Yeah. And I think therapy feels different, right? At when that starts to happen.
Oh man. Yes. Yeah. I agree. Like, and I think as a therapist, I get a little scared a little bit too, because especially like if you're in the individual process, like the relationship kind of gets disrupted a little bit with these markers, with these milestones.
Sure.
But like I said, this being a big one, it's going to create a disruption that we have to go through, and you and I know that we walk through this with them.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, I don't know. I just think that it's the resolve of, I'm going to do what's next. And that doesn't mean that means they're going to be together or not, right? But just kind of, I don't know, feeling that empowerment gives you, a sense
Right.
of clarity, right?
Yeah. Without giving out too much information, there's I probably the biggest moment I had in a session, like the most powerful moment, was a moment when this happened with one of my clients, and I'll never forget it. Like, and it doesn't look pretty sometimes. Like,
Sure.
I mean, this person was an emotional mess when they realized, when it hit them, that, and and it was just, like I said, it impacted me in a big way. I don't think I've ever seen or quite had an experience like that with a client since then. I mean, we've definitely hit the milestone before, but where it was such what word am I looking for? Like a moving,
Yeah.
yes, like just such a moving experience. Yeah, it's very powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. We get to be with people in amazing moments, don't we?
Yeah,
Yeah. These milestones are amazing.
yeah, yeah. People ask us a lot. I'm sure it happens to you too. How do you do what you do? How do you listen to these horrible stories, people's darkness all day long? And so the first thing I say is, like, okay, it's not easy. I mean, there are definitely times where sometimes it's hard to keep your hope in humanity. There's definitely those moments for therapists, but I mean, I've really just always considered it a privilege. Like people are trusting us with parts of their stories that they've never told anybody. Sometimes we're the first ones
I know.
to get to hear some of the most intimate and, yes, dark, some of the darkest parts of their lives.
Yeah.
And I just think it's such a privilege.
Yeah. I think it's so
to
special.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to get to see people get better. That's what I wish people asked, how do you do this? Like, well, you just, how much you feel, I don't know, a part of something bigger when people get better.
Yeah. Maybe we're a glutton for punishment too,
Oh, maybe that's
because
true, right.
we don't ever get to see them get all the way
better.
Because there's
Right?
that moment.
They don't need us anymore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's that moment
Yeah.
where it's like, hey, we'll take it from here. And
Yeah,
like, oh, okay.
I know.
Well, you're gonna let me know, right?
I know.
Like, no,
But
no.
I always like to think of it as what an actually well-adjusted parent is like when their kid leaves, right? And I'm not saying that those people exist. I'm saying the textbook adjusted parent. It's like, go on, have a great time. I don't need to worry about,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that.
I don't know. Well, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah,
at
I
this
think
point.
I think that might be a checked out parent.
Maybe.
Well, you're not worried about your kids when they leave. You're not in reality.
Yeah. Or maybe you've raised a kid that's capable. I don't know.
Yeah. No,
I
I'm
know.
sure it does exist.
I'm sure. Maybe.
Well, I hope we didn't rush it, but because there's a lot to unpack in each one of
I
those.
know.
But I thought it was, we kind of, just tapped into that idea of these milestones, which we've talked about many times.
Yeah.
Just on our own, we're consulting cases
Right.
and everything.
Right.
But something about how we're talking about it in that last episode.
Yeah.
I was like, that I think maybe we should organize a little bit of a discussion on that. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that's what we came up with.
Yeah. I think it's helpful.
Yeah, I hope it was.
I hope so.
So,
Okay.
anyways, we appreciate people listening to this, and don't forget to subscribe on YouTube and give us a 5-star review if you're listening to this on a podcast, and we'll be back with more next time.
Thank you.